Hey, what's up everyone? Today we're talking about what happened to AJ Green in his journey to becoming one of the best wide receivers in the NFL to what he is now. Make sure to like, comment down below, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell. It helps me out a lot. AJ Green was born on July 31st, 1988 in Summerville, South Carolina, where he grew up with his mother, father, and older brother. He immediately had to deal with tragedy in his life as at just age 4, his older brother, who was just 9 years old, died in a car accident on the way to a school carnival. AJ Green was actually sitting in the back seat when this happened. AJ has said before that he knows God put him in the back seat for a reason. He used this as motivation and fuel growing up. He was actually on his elementary school juggling team where he said he learned great hand-eye coordination. Now, as we all know, this would help him in his high school career where he was actually a 3-sport athlete playing football, baseball, and track. Green attended Summerville High School in Summerville, South Carolina. He shined the most in football where he played wide receiver. As just a freshman in high school, he had 57 receptions for 1,217 yards and 8 touchdowns. And as a sophomore, he had 75 receptions for 1,422 yards and 16 touchdowns and finished his high school career with 5,373 yards, which ranked him second all-time in career receiving yards of the National Federation of High Schools. He was absolutely insane and hard to cover. He was ranked as a top 10 recruit in the nation and the #1 overall receiver in the class of 2008. He actually had already verbally committed to sign with the Georgia Bulldogs and officially signed with them in 2008. So how would he play in college?
Cox in the corner, man for man.
What a play. AJ Green. Can't cover a guy any better, right, Vern?
No.
As a true freshman for Georgia, Green flashed signs of his superstar potential as he would set the record for catches, yards, and touchdowns for a freshman. He finished with 56 receptions for 963 yards and 8 touchdowns. Now, as a sophomore, Green became the #1 option and again showed his potential, but he did miss the last 3 games of the season. However, he still put up 53 receptions for 808 yards, 6 more touchdowns. Before his junior year, Green was known as one of the best wide receivers in all of college, but he was suspended for the first 4 games of the year after he admitted to selling his 2009 Independence Bowl jersey for $1,000 to a former North Carolina defensive back. And apparently he was someone the NCAA described as an agent or someone who markets amateur athletes. It was really a whole confusing, messy situation. But after all this, he would actually play in 9 games, receiving 57 catches for 848 yards, 9 more touchdowns. Just insane production. And again, keep in mind, he didn't play on the best teams in his 3 years, but still elevated the offense when he was on the field. But despite missing a few games in college, he showed his NFL talent and how dominant and difficult he can be to cover. He finished his 3 seasons at the University of Georgia with 166 receptions for 2,619 yards and 23 touchdowns. After his junior year, Green would declare for the 2011 NFL Draft, standing at nearly 6 foot 4 inches and 215 pounds and a 4.5 40-yard dash. He was highly coveted by NFL teams. Before the draft, he drew comparisons to Andre Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald. Despite missing some games in college, teams coveted his athleticism and talent too much to pass on him. So, in the 2011 NFL Draft, AJ Green was selected 4th overall by the Cincinnati Bengals. He became the highest drafted wide receiver in Georgia school history. One thing to note is that he was actually selected 2 spots higher than Julio Jones, who, as we all know, became one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. Did the Bengals make the right pick? I don't know, debatable. Let me know in the comments below. As a rookie in the NFL, AJ Green immediately showed why he was selected 4th overall.
Dalton out of the pocket, dials up the deep ball, double coverage, and caught by Green! Touchdown! It's the rookie connection for the Bengals.
Now, we talked about how Dalton will throw the ball up to a 6'4" rookie receiver despite the coverage.
As a rookie, he broke the Bengals' rookie receiving record held previously by Chris Collinsworth. He was even named to the Pro Bowl as he caught 65 receptions for 1,057 yards and 7 touchdowns. The Bengals actually made the playoffs, but were defeated in the wildcard round to the Houston Texans 31-10. In his second season, he was again at a Pro Bowl level as he dominated with 97 receptions for 1,350 yards and 11 touchdowns, and the Bengals again made the playoffs, but again lost to the Texans in the playoffs. In the 2013 season, AJ Green would have his best statistical season of his career, catching 98 receptions for 1,426 yards and 11 more touchdowns. It was clear that AJ was a top 5 wide receiver in the league and consistently helped his team and his quarterback, Andy Dalton. The Bengals finished 11-5 and looked poised to finally push through and win a playoff game. However, they were defeated in the wildcard round in a 27-10 loss to the San Diego Chargers. The offense again just struggled in the playoffs, and Green finished with just 3 receptions for 34 yards. Again, it's one of those things, the Bengals had pretty up and down offenses, but when it came time in the playoffs, they just weren't putting up points. However, Green had an incredible year and was ranked 9th in the entire NFL by his fellow players on the top 100 NFL players list of 2014. In 2014, Green had some injuries and ended up missing 3 games and most of 2 other games, but he still finished with 69 receptions for 1,041 yards and 6 touchdowns, again making the Pro Bowl. And the Bengals, for the 3rd straight year, did make the playoffs and were in the wildcard round again. Would this be the year that they finally break through? No. They lost 26-10 in the wildcard round. I mean, again, the offense just couldn't put together any momentum and couldn't put points on the board. It was just another disappointing end to what was a promising season. Now, for the 2015 season, Greenwood put up 89 receptions for 1,297 yards and 10 touchdowns. He again had a monster season and helped the Bengals to a 12-4 record and first place in their division. They would make it back to the playoffs to go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. There was a lot of hype, there was a lot of promise. Bengals fans were excited. Let's see if they can win this game. However, the Bengals offense struggled with quarterback AJ McCarron and found themselves down 15-0 going into the 4th quarter. However, with under 2 minutes to go in the game, AJ McCarron went deep to AJ Green, and Green was able to score a touchdown to give the Bengals the lead.
And McCarron goes down the field, and it's caught, and Green's in for the touchdown!
They would then attempt a 2-point conversion, but failed, and it wasn't even close. So the Steelers got the ball back, but they were with backup quarterback Landry Jones as Ben Roethlisberger got hurt earlier in the game. Landry Jones actually threw an interception, and it looked like the game was over. So they won, right? Well...
Here's Hill. Jarvis Jones. Ball is out! Shazier had it for a moment, and now it's picked up by Cockrell.
Yes, the Bengals would immediately fumble it right back to the Steelers, and Ben Roethlisberger, who as I said left earlier in the game with an injury, came back in the game for the final drive. And one of the most famous plays from this game, and honestly one of the most famous plays from the playoffs in the 2010s era, Vontaze Burfict hit Antonio Brown in a penalty, and during this whole thing, players were arguing. Pac-Man Jones was also called for a personal foul. So yeah, with just 18 seconds left in the game, the Bengals gave the Steelers 30 yards on penalties, hit the game-winning field goal, and yet again, the Bengals failed in the playoffs. It was a heartbreaking game for the Bengals players and fans, and this started what many people said was the Bengals curse and how they just couldn't win in the playoffs. So even though they made it to 5 straight playoffs, they had 0 playoff wins, and this would be the beginning of the end for the 2010s Bengals teams. In the 2016 season, AJ would hurt his hamstring in week 11, causing him to miss the final 6 games of the season. He would finish the year with his first season under 1,000 yards, where he had 66 receptions for 964 yards and just 4 touchdowns. The Bengals finished a disappointing 6-9-1. Now, in 2017, AJ Green would have a great bounce back year and surged ahead to 75 receptions for 1,078 yards and 8 touchdowns. He showed he was back from the injury and again could take over games, but the Bengals again would miss the playoffs. And unfortunately, this was his last great season, because in the 2018 season, AJ Green would only play in 9 games as he dealt with a toe injury that eventually led to him missing the entire rest of the season, so he only finished with 46 receptions for 694 yards and 6 touchdowns, and this would actually end his 7-year Pro Bowl streak. Now, I don't know about you, but for a wide receiver to make 7 straight Pro Bowls starting in his rookie year, that's pretty insane. So, AJ Green had a fantastic 7-year stretch, but now, was he going to start dealing with injuries? Well, in 2019, Green suffered torn ligaments in his ankle during practice. He tried to come back throughout the year, they tried to hold on, the team kept him on the roster, but he ended up missing the entire 2019 season. And the Bengals franchise was going in a new direction. They fired coach Marvin Lewis after 16 years as the team's head coach. Now again, this is a big controversial topic. Lots of people love Marvin Lewis for the Bengals. I was actually someone who said he should have got fired earlier. Yeah, he made the playoffs a lot, but they just never seemed prepared when they actually went to their playoff games. Bengals fans, let me know in the comments down below. Were you happy when they fired Marvin Lewis, or do you miss him and wish he was still there? They would actually hire coach Zach Taylor, and in 2019, the Bengals would finish just 2-14. But this gave them the #1 overall pick for the upcoming draft. Now, going into 2020, the Bengals would actually franchise tag AJ Green to keep him for one more year and pair him with the new #1 overall pick, LSU quarterback Joe Burrow, who had just come off a year where he led the LSU Tigers to a national championship in a historic record-breaking season. Now, AJ Green did have an up and down year. I mean, he showed some of the rust after not playing for so long. He had to play the rookie quarterback, and then Joe Burrow got hurt. Lots of situations that happened. So he only finished the season with 47 receptions for 523 yards and just 2 touchdowns. And that would be the end. After the injuries and being 32 years old, the Bengals and AJ Green just couldn't come to a deal, and they decided to part ways. AJ Green would sign a 1-year, $8 million deal with the Arizona Cardinals. After leaving, Green would say, quote, "Cincinnati will always be my first love. That city embraced me. My kids were both born when I was there. That's all we know. Like any business, everything comes to an end at some point. I'm very grateful to the Brown family. They took a risk on a kid at a young age and changed my life forever." And AJ Green's wife would say this, quote, "Look, Green isn't a numbers guy, but I know the numbers. And these are the numbers he wants. All-time top 5 in receiving touchdowns and all-time top 10 in receiving yards. If he has to play beyond 2024, his temple of a body has the answer." So all that being said, AJ's determined to get back to a high level and become a Pro Bowl caliber receiver again. I mean, he had an incredible career and an insanely fast start in Cincinnati. He had so many explosive plays and at times looked like one of the absolute best players in the entire NFL. Now he's playing on the Arizona Cardinals with young quarterback Kyler Murray, who has showed a lot of promise and has a bright future in the NFL, and he's playing opposite of DeAndre Hopkins, who is currently one of the best wide receivers in the game, and some think he is the best receiver in the game. Now, I personally hope AJ Green can get back to that elite level, or again, become a solid 1,000-yard receiver. I'm a Cowboys fan, but as far as my secondary quote-unquote teams go, the Bengals are definitely on that list, so I was sad to see that the Bengals let him go, but I'm always going to be an AJ Green fan and follow him for his career. Let me know down in the comments below what you liked most about AJ Green, and what do you think about his career that he had in Cincinnati? I mean, I liked Andy Dalton, especially in his Bengals days, but if AJ Green had played with a top 10 quarterback, I can only imagine how insane his numbers would have been. Let me know your predictions down below. How much longer will Green play? Will he be elite again, or is it just too late? Thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure to do that and hit that notification bell to stay up to date when I upload new videos. Make sure to like, again, comment whatever you have down below. And as always, everyone, I'll see you in the next one.
Near side, it is caught. AJ Green cutting back, and he's in.